Welcome back to the Fantasy Trading Room, hosted by Faceoff Sports Network. And today we're going to be diving into some Week 8 wide receiver and running back rankings. Now, we're almost halfway done with the NFL season, which means the fantasy football playoffs are slowly creeping up on us. So we need to make sure we can't just throw these wins under the rug. We need to be winning every single week now. It's time to, maybe not stash as many guys and look ahead, but we need to be getting these wins every single week to lead up to the fantasy football playoffs and ensure that our team does get in. But to kick things off, we'll go with the wide receivers. And we have a guy in a tier of his own, Tyreek Hill against the New England Patriots. Now, so far this year, Tyreek Hill has crushed. And right now, he has the most points in fantasy football by 16. And that is including quarterbacks. Now, this is a little skewed because, you have teams on bye and all that type of stuff. But how impressive is it that Tyreek Hill is outscoring these quarterbacks no matter what? I mean, he's been crushing it this year. The Dolphins have looked amazing. Tua, my guy, has been dominating. So really it makes me happy to see that. And I expect this to continue going forward. Now, Jalen Waddle, I think, should slightly bounce back. But right now he's just been, he's been a little banged up at the beginning of the year and that type of stuff. He just hasn't been fully producing to where we thought he would be. But Tyreek Hill is making up for that and killing it every single week. Then we'll drop down to tier 2 where we have a list of guys. We have Cooper Kupp at number 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Rams should be trailing this game. And even though in a lot of positions you look for guys that have good matchups against the secondary and all that type of stuff, I really honestly like targeting teams that are going to be getting almost blown out. Now, of course, you like a close, high-scoring game, but to some extent, like we saw today, the Bucs get behind, for example, early on because the Bills are crushing them 24-10, almost halfway through the third quarter, maybe even a little earlier than that. Rachaad White doesn't get the ball at all. They're forced to throw the ball almost every single down. And who's that help? These wide receivers. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to play wide receivers against teams that are heavily favored over them. And honestly, that makes me feel a little more comfortable about those guys because we know that the passing volume is going to be increased from what it even normally is. Next year is Stephon Diggs against the Bucs. So yes, obviously this game already happened as you're seeing this, and I'm recording this on Thursday night. If you want to see these rankings live before the Thursday night football games, just go look up Steve Bradshaw Fantasy or go to the Faceoff Sports Network author page and click on my name and you'll see my rankings. I do running back, wide receiver, and quarterback and tight end rankings every single week. So if you want to see that before the games are live, be sure to head over there and check that out. But Diggs had 16 points. I mean, he had absolutely crushed as the Bills were kind of in full control by the time the third quarter rolled around. But still, it just was the fact that he wasn't getting these targets deep down the field. He had a fair amount of receptions, solid game. But Keenan Allen against the Bears is at number 4. Now, I think the Chargers should handle the Bears pretty easily. But again, besides Jalen Johnson, this Bears secondary is depleted and their defense sucks. So I think that the Chargers are going to crush the Bears. Keenan Allen get off to a hot start, and I'm not really looking to rank him much lower than outside the top 5 on a weekly basis anyway, based on how good he's been, how good Herbert is, and how electric this Chargers offense can be. Then we got A.J. Brown against the Washington Commanders. A.J. Brown has been dominant, but I am a little scared that on any given week, he could fall down slightly to earth with Devonta Smith, taking a bigger role in this offense. Now, A.J. Brown has just looked lights out, like I said, but again, he has that boom or bust potential as long as he's getting these touchdowns and the majority of targets. Yeah, he is going to be one of the best players in fantasy football. But Devonta Smith can easily swoop in and take some of those targets, as we saw earlier in the year. Then we have Ja'Marr Chase against the 49ers. I really like Chase and these Bengals. I know Joe Burrow has been banged up, but I think this extra week to rest can really help him out. He will definitely be more healthy than he's been all year, which should obviously benefit Chase. And again, like we talked about, the 49ers should still be favored in this game, even with Sam Darnold at quarterback. I think the Bengals are going to throw the ball a little more, and they already throw the ball at the 5th highest rate in the NFL. So that makes a lot of sense for being extremely bullish on Ja'Marr Chase. Then we got Amon-Ra against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Lions should pretty easily boat race the Raiders, but St. Brown's is a talented player. This Lions offense just looks so good, but they don't have Dave Montgomery to run the ball a ton, so they're going to be dropping back to pass, and Jahmyr Gibbs is also a primary pass catcher, so that should help expand the role of these other pass catchers. When Jahmyr Gibbs is on the field, they're more likely to get the ball to him in space, but that also means that Amon-Ra could get open very quickly underneath, and we have Goff feeding him there. Then on top of that, we have Jameson Williams stretching the field. He's been all right from a fantasy perspective, but he's going to provide value from a real life perspective. Then we got Sam Laporta in the middle of the field running those medium routes, and he's not really taking too much Amon-Ra short routes, but he is getting down there a little bit. I think this offense is perfect, one of the most underrated offenses in the league, especially if Dave Montgomery gets back and fully healthy anytime soon. Then dropping down to tier 3, we have Puka going against the Cowboys. Now, people are kind of waiting for Puka to fall off and get taken over by Cooper Kupp, but I'm comfortable ranking Puka as a top 10 guy every single week. He actually outproduced Kupp last week, but still, we know Kupp's the alpha. The Cowboys are still a good team. The Rams have struggled, so it should be a relatively high-scoring game, and the Rams are expected to trail, meaning more passing volume. Then we got CeeDee Lamb against the Rams. Again, just a really good player. It should be a fairly high-scoring game. Then Adam Thielen against the Texans, and I really like this matchup because the Texans aren't good, but the Panthers aren't good either. So this should be one of the only games where, we don't have a team getting blown out here, but this is a close game. So it should just favor Adam Thielen as he's going to be getting heavily involved. The Panthers are really going to want to dial in and win this game, and the Texans have a fairly weak secondary. They got Derek Stingley, but I mean, it's the Texans. We can't really think too much of this defense. They have a few pieces, but overall, Thielen should be able to be used in the slot and just crush this week. Now, Davante Adams at 11, and I know it may seem extreme to put Davante this low and behind Adam Thielen, but just look at the numbers in the last 3 games and even early in the year. Thielen has been better than him almost every single week. We got to put Adams behind him. Just Jimmy G, not 100%. Jacoby. I feel like we got to wait for Adams to have one of his big bounce back games before we can put him extremely high up. Now, obviously, he's still a wide receiver 1, but moving him down slightly makes sense. Then we got Ayuk against the Bengals, DJ Moore against the Chargers. So this is a pretty big tier. There's not really too much separation, in my opinion. Ayuk against the Bengals, Moore against the Chargers makes sense. 2 relatively high-scoring games, and Ayuk and Moore are both talented players. Now, they will each be having their own quarterback issues, but I think Darnold is a lot better than Tyson Bagent. As a Bears fan, respectively, Tyson getting his first NFL win last week. Then we got Jordan Addison, who was my start of the week last week. If you check out my articles and listen to what I said last week, he wasn't really being even talked about as a top 24 guy. But I was high on Jordan Addison. He finishes the wide receiver 1 on the week, so feeling good about that. If you think I'm an idiot, I probably am. But I at least have some things going for me in that extent. Then we got Devonta Smith against the Commanders. Talented player. Can't put him much lower than this. Pittman against the Saints. He's good. Minshew should improve this passing offense. Now, Downs is amazing, but Pittman is very efficient. He had 2 catches for 83 yards, which isn't exactly what you love to see, but we know he's a good player. Olave against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, we know the drama with Olave speeding. It looks like he's going to play this game, and Derek Carr is unfortunately checking the ball down, but Olave is still getting open. Carr missed him on a few deep balls. I think we still have to be starting Olave just based on the upside he has, and he's still producing at a fine, 12, 13 points per game rate. He just isn't having these big breakout games because of his QB play that we thought he was going to have coming into the year. Then we got Mike Evans against the Buffalo Bills, and Evans didn't have a great game. I mean, he was kind of getting shadowed for a lot of the game. The Bills were really trying to take him out. He finished with 13 points, but early on, he was really a non-factor in this game. So good job by the Bills defense kind of taking him out for a majority of the game. Then we got Jacoby Myers. I don't think I can rank him above Devontae Adams just based on the talent profile, but he definitely deserves to be a top 24 guy. If we continue to see this trend going forward, he's just going to keep rising. But then we have Jalen Waddle. I'm betting on the talent. The Dolphins offense is going to score a ton of points every single week still. We still got to put him as a wide receiver too, even though he has not looked good at all this year. We're putting Kirk above Calvin Ridley now. It's a great situation for these guys. I would really like to sneak Ridley in here, but he's just not looked good. Kirk is that slot guy getting the targets and volume right now, so we have to be bumping him up against Ridley. Then Garrett Wilson. Zach Wilson hasn't looked too bad as of late. The talent's there. It's kind of what the theme is. Jacoby has been amazing, but then we got Waddle, talented, Kirk, talented, and Garrett Wilson, uber talented as well. Then we have tier 5, two guys, T. Higgins and Marquise Brown. Now, T. Higgins, again, I think should be a big benefactor from Joe Burrow. Now, he's had his own injury concerns himself, but that bye week should have helped him and Burrow a ton. Higgins, we know coming into the year, was drafted extremely high and has been very, very bad this year. But still, I really like this matchup against the 49ers. Great defense, but they're really only ranked 12 in allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. It shouldn't be a complete blowout, but they should still be, behind the 49ers. And Joe Burrow should be a lot better. Really like T. Higgins this week. Then we got Marquise Brown against the Ravens. Marquise Brown has been a stud this year, and I really liked him in the offseason. Now, he's been able to produce without Kyler. Once Kyler comes back, he should have even more upside. But he can produce without Kyler. They're going up against the Ravens, so don't love this matchup. But he's been even better than this so far this year. So I'm dropping him down, taking into account the bad quarterback play and the Ravens matchup. Let's head into the running back tiers. In tier 1 and in tier by himself, we have CMC against the Bengals. Now, he did end up playing last week, which I was extremely surprised by. I did not think he needed to play, but he did. He was good. Very surprising from the 49ers to, trot him out there, even with his extensive injury history. Then we have tier 2, Austin Eckler against the Bears. Looking very good this year, and the Bears' run defense just not good. The Bears are bad. Chargers should get up, be able to run the ball quite a bit, and you already know what Eckler does as a receiver. Then we got Etienne, who has crushed this year. Great matchup against the Steelers. Gotta love Etienne. He's been phenomenal. Jags' offense hopefully should keep improving. Trevor Lawrence is looking a little better than he was early in the year and has had a few injury concerns. So hopefully he should be much healthier this week. Then we got Tony Pollard against the Rams. Pollard has been a beast this year. At times he has struggled, but the talent is there. And then Bijan Robinson, we all know, assuming Arthur Smith doesn't falsely report that Bijan Robinson is playing. God, I hate Arthur Smith. I hate Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith genuinely makes me so mad, and how he has the need to mention fantasy football players every single time in his post-game conference. He is the most smug. God, I hate Arthur Smith. It's not even about fantasy football. It's illegal. He's borderline breaking the rules. Obviously, we can't really. It's just a slap on the wrist because there's no way of knowing when they knew that Bijan wasn't good to go, and he did technically play in the game. But Arthur Smith knows what he did. Everyone in the fantasy world hates Arthur Smith. He doesn't play his best players. He doesn't to get him involved, and he decides to try out this awful quarterback, Desmond Ridder, and was completely fine having him as their QB in the offseason, which has been a terrible idea. I hate Arthur Smith. Anyway, let's talk about Kenneth Walker against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns should be awful. PJ Walker is just not a good quarterback. Now, I want to say that PJ Walker has made arguably one of the best throws of all time on that Hail Mary to DJ Moore in Carolina, but he's not a good starting quarterback, let's be honest. So the Seahawks, as bad as they looked last week, Geno Smith was not good, should get up pretty easily in this game. Kenneth Walker's been a stud. Really like KW against the Browns. Then tier 3, we have Alvin Kamara, who is on pace to break the running back single-season receiving record, considering he was suspended for the first 3 games. This is insane. Derek Carr loves to throw the ball underneath. I really was surprised by this, but right now we know what Carr is, and we know what Kamara is, so we're going to keep trotting him out there. If he's getting 8 targets a game, yeah, he has to be a top 10 back locked in every single week. Then we got Raheem Mostert. He's a top 10 back in this elite Dolphins offense with no Devin Achane. Then we got Saquon Barkley, 9 against the Jets. Should be a fairly close game. Both teams are pretty bad, but Barkley, you have the talent and the workload, what we're looking for here. And Breece Hall, we have a Giants defense that has been all right. Again, this is the same matchup, Saquon versus Breece. Zach Wilson has looked a little better. Dalvin Cook's been completely phased out, so Hall is talented. I'm still a little worried with the offense and the injury from last year, but Hall, I think with how little other great running backs there are, is a top 10 back this week. Then DeAndre Swift, I could definitely see the argument to put him higher than this, but they're playing against the Commanders, and I don't really know if the Eagles are going to be passing the ball a ton. The Commanders aren't that good in my opinion, and Swift gets a majority of his work through the air, and surprisingly enough, Jalen Hurts has been checking the ball down a fair amount, but I'm not sure how much they're going to pass this week. Then Isaiah Pacheco against the Broncos. I was a little scared about Pacheco, but he has improved his workload as a passer this year, which has been extremely nice to see. He's had 4 targets, 6 targets in the past few weeks, so matchup from Pacheco. He's in a great offense. I think we can honestly start him as a low end. I'd have him around the RB 12 to 14 range going forward. Then we have tier 4 Jonathan Taylor. Now, he looked phenomenal last week, and I expect these carries to keep going up for him. He had 18. But unfortunately, Zach Moss did still have about 50% of the backfield. He was just wildly inefficient. We've honestly seen him be pretty good, and I think we can chalk it up to Zach Moss is a pretty good running back behind this Colts offensive line. So I'm not ready to go all in and declare Taylor as a top 10 back, but he's definitely dramatically higher than he was last week. Then we have Henry against the Falcons. Now, the Falcons aren't good, so Henry should be utilized in a close game. They're not going to pull him for spears and throw the ball every single down. Solid matchup. I think that's really all it comes down to. Henry's a stud. Hopefully he gets traded to the Ravens. That'll be awesome to see. Then Rhamondre Stevenson against the Dolphins. The Dolphins should boat race the Patriots, but that means that Mac Jones will throw the ball. Hopefully Stevenson continues to, sit around that 14 points per game mark like he did the past few previous weeks. He's a good pass catcher. Ezekiel Elliott is dust. I think he can improve as a runner as well. So I'm fine with him having it at 15. After Stevenson, we have Mixon against the 49ers. Don't love it because the Bengals are a good offense, but they shouldn't be winning this game, which means they're not going to be running the ball a ton. Jacobs, the talent is there. Just such a bad situation. Still have to have him as a mid RB2. Then Gibbs against the Raiders should be very interesting. He had a great week last week. I'm not 100% sold on him. But with no Monty, I think we got to chalk him up as a mid RB2 with a ton of upside every single week. Then Rachaad White against the Bills. Now, he was not good on the ground. I believe he had 40 rushing yards, but he had 18 points from his pass catching work. Now, this is why I like Rachaad White, because he may not be the most efficient runner, but he's getting these checkdowns from Baker Mayfield. He's playing almost every single down. The Bucks don't have anyone else, so I like this matchup. Probably should have had him a little higher, but with how disappointing he's been, I think it was fair to rank him then. Then we have Darrell Henderson against the Cowboys. These are disgusting. We have Darrell Henderson, Zach Moss, and Alexander Madison, all kind of in a similar situation. Not any of them are great running backs, but they have the workload except for Zach Moss, who is a great running back, but doesn't have the workload from what we've seen so far. Then Aaron Jones, he's limited, but, we have Gus Edwards at 24, so who the hell are we starting over Aaron Jones? I think we kind of have to put him in. Hopefully he's not too limited, but God, at the end of this running back 2 tier, it's just such a crapshoot. We have Aaron Jones, Gus Edwards to wrap things out. I don't even know what to say about the end of this. It's just such a bad situation. Gus Edwards I'm only putting here because he's going against the Cardinals. But that said, I hope you guys enjoyed these rankings. I hope this was extremely helpful for you. And if you want to see more of these rankings, come back every Friday. Want to see it waiver wire pickups to win your league? Come back every Tuesday. I'm Steve Bradshaw from the Fantasy Trading Room at the Face Off Sports Network, and I'll see you guys in the next video.